Hello, this is Debbie from Cariad Cards, and this is my very first video, so you may have to bear with me if I do a few mistakes. I'll do my best to get it all right first time. This is the card that I'm going to be showing you how to make today. I think it's a lovely card. It's quite a simple looking card, although there are a few processes to making it, but it's really not that difficult to do, and it does look very effective in lots of different colourways. So, to start with, I tend to use a 6x6 card blank that I just buy in a pack. Use my bone folder to score it. So I've got that ready and I'll just pop it aside, pick it up later. I use Whisper White cardstock and I've pre-cut two pieces. This one is 14.2 centimetres by 14.2 centimetres. I know it sounds a bit of a strange measurement, but I just find it works for me and leaves the right amount of space from the edge of the card to the first layer. So 14.2 centimetres by 14.2. Don't worry about remembering the measurements, I will put them on my blog. This second piece, and that's the one that we're going to be working on, is 13.5 centimetres by 13.5 centimetres, and that's in Whisper White. So I'm going to be using those shortly. I'll just put them aside for now. The first thing I'm going to do after that then is to start stamping these images here. Now, I used these sets. This one is Serene Silhouettes. That's the stamp that I used to create this. And to create these I used the Hopeful Thoughts set, and that's the stamp that I picked out of there. I'm using Strawberry Slush ink. I do love this colour, it's a really beautiful intense pink colour. It's almost bordering on red but not quite. So I'm going to start stamping, open my ink pad up, and when I stamp I find I get a better image if I use a bit of foam. And I tend to also put some scrap paper on just to keep my foam pad nice and clean. I've got some scraps of Whisper White card that I just happen to have on one side. I'm going to ink up my stamp so it's nice and well inked, and just press firmly down, and there's my stamped image, and I'll just leave that to dry for a minute or two before I do anything with it. I also want two of these images because I want to cut two circles out. So again, I'm going to be using the stamp from the Hopeful Thoughts set, which I'm going to ink up. I think I might use a slightly bigger one because I want a slightly bigger circle. So I'm just going to stamp that fairly randomly because I'm going to cut out from there. And let's try doing that way, because I don't want both of them to look exactly the same on the card. So again, I'll just put those on one side. Right, going back to this, let's just put my ink away. I cut that out. You could use a Stampin' Up punch. I just happen to have a set of circle die cutters which go up in different sizes, and that one is the 5 centimetre die cutter. So you pop that on, it fits perfectly. Run that through the Big Shot, which I've already done just to save a bit of time, and it comes out looking like that. And then for these I used 6 centimetre die cutter, which I placed over there, and then I did it again, cut out in a slightly different place, and I ended up with my two circles there. So that will save a bit of time. Right, the next thing that we need to do is to cut these apertures so that we can show this from underneath. As you can see, they're just set back. So you take your 13 by 13 piece of Whisper White cardstock, and I do this by eye really, so I know I want that in the centre. Take your 5 centimetre die cutter and work out roughly where you want them to be. I'm going to have them, I think I'll have them that way actually. So I'm going to put that there. I know I want to emboss 2 lines around the outer edge, so I want to leave some space. That will be about right. So I'm going to run that through my die cutter, or I would have run it through, but I've already done it to save time. And there's the one that I've already done. So once I've got the first one out, lay that over again. I know I want that there. Put that in. Now remember, that the cutting edge isn't actually on the edge, it's on the inner edge of it. So I'm going to lay that there, and I would be embossing around here. So I know that I need to leave enough space sort of there and there so that they look fairly equal. Now I could use a tape measure and measure it, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to eyeball it. So if I sort of look at that, I think that's roughly about the right amount, and there and there. So again, I'm happy with that, so I would run that through the die cutter. And again, in typical Blue Peter fashion, I've already done it for you. Right, the next stage, now I've done that, is I'm going to emboss the lines. The reason that I cut these first was, had I embossed the lines around the outer edge, these lines, running it through the die cutter would have flattened them, and I don't want that. I want them to stand nice and proud. So let's just move my stamping pad out of the way, and I'm going to get my Simply Scored board. That's my top edge, so I'm going to turn it upside down. Make sure it's fitting nicely along the horizontal and the vertical edge, and I want to use my stylus that comes with it, and I'm going to not start on the very edge one, just one in, but not quite at the edge, and just press down, run it down the groove and stop just before I get to the edge. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and do the same, run it down. And I find if I hold this vertically rather than that way, it tends to be less likely to slip out of the grooves. So again, I'm going to find the place there, run it down, and finally on the final corner. Now you can just leave it like that, it looks perfectly beautiful, but I'm going to put a double embossed line. So that's the one I use. I'm going to go one in, and again just start slightly in, run it down, turn it round, and run it down again, turn it round. I do love this effect. I always think it just sets a card off and saves you having to have too many layers. Okay, if you can hear any talking in the background, I'm sorry, I think a friend's just turned up and hubby's gone to the door to answer it. Right, so that's done. Now the next thing I want to do is to ink around the edges, because again I think this really helps you see that you've got the different layers and it lifts them. So to do that I use a finger sponge dauber, I'm not quite sure what you call them, just that, and I'm going to use my strawberry slush ink. Okay, and I just sort of dip it in and rub it along. Now it's up to you how much you want to put on. If you move it further over the card you'll get a deeper line. You can not load this up so often so that you get a paler effect, and it's not difficult to do, it's just practice really, but I do think it makes a heck of a difference to the finished card. Right, almost done. I'm just looking around my desk because I know that the bottom layer, again I'd done a Blue Peter one and almost finished inking it, because I just figured you probably wouldn't want to spend a lot of time watching me inking up things. So I have, here we are. So I've done 3 sides, I'm just going to do the final and 4th side. Okay, all inked. Just put my ink away for now. Right, now the next thing I'm going to do is attach these underneath, and they're going to go under like that. What I want to make sure I do is put them so that they're at different angles. You can see I've got one going up there, one going across. Now if I just stick them on like that, they look a bit flat, and if you can see from the finished card I've got a bit of dimension going on, it looks a bit 3D. Now I achieved that by using these foam pads. Now I should really be using Stampin' Up! Dimensionals. I have run out, I'm afraid. I have some on order, they are coming any day now. Now there isn't a lot of room. If you remember, we cut this one at 6 centimetres and the holes at 5 centimetres, so there is some overlap, but there's not a lot of overlap. I did try going up to the 7 centimetres, but it just made them a bit big and unwieldy. So I'm just going to put these really almost around the edges, just to make sure that what you don't want to see these poking through the holes. This is enough just to stick them. In fact, if you're feeling very economical, you could even cut them in half. No, this is the problem not having any nails, is getting these off. So there's one, and I'm just going to put this underneath. So side, I'm going to put it there. Let's move this out of the way. And I'm going to have that going that way, put it down and just put it over until I'm happy. Make sure I can't see the foam pads, and stick that one down. And then I'll just quickly do the same to the other one. This is actually quite a quick card to make once you've got everything out and ready. You know, probably about 15 minutes in total, which, you know, for such a lovely card is, I think, is pretty quick. Okay, now I've got that one, if you remember, going that way, so I'm going to have this one going a different way. So I'll lay it down there and put it over until I'm happy with the look I'm going to get, and just pop it down. And then I'm going to put this on. So again, foam pads on the back, nearly finished. And there we go. Lovely jubbly. Right, just move all those off. Okay, so then, whoops, because those are sticking over the edges, beware of that. They've just slightly stuck to that. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my card blank that I folded earlier, and the one that I'd inked, and I've just stuck some dimensionals on the back of this. I'll see if I can speed this part of the video up so you don't have to watch me taking the backs off all these dimensionals. Well, these are actually foam pads, but hopefully in a couple of days I'll have my proper Stampin' Up dimensions again, which are far superior to these. Okay, now you have to be quite careful with foam pads because you don't really get a second chance. You know, they go on where they touch. So try and line them up. Okay. And this one, I'm going to use slightly deeper ones because I've already got this here. Now I do want it raised up, but I need to make sure that I've cleared that area. So I'm going to use these deeper foam pads to put that on. So I won't need quite so many of these as they're much larger. I'll just stick those on. I do have a bit of a thing about sticky foam pads. I always tend to put far more on than I actually need. I don't know why that is, but I always have this fear of cards ending up sinking in places where I haven't got it supported. So make sure you've got it the right way up. Check your card. I've done that. I'm sure you've done that. Stuck things on the wrong way. And then just need to line that up on there. Make sure you're happy. Drop it down. Stick it on. There. Nearly finished. As you can see, we've got dimension there, and some nice dimension going on here. And the very last thing, you can leave it like that. There's nothing wrong with that. Or you can put a little greeting on. And for that, I used the Another Thank You set, and I used that one, and I chose to do it in chocolate chip. I thought black would be a bit harsh, and pink, there's a little bit, you know, there's not too much pink, it's looking gorgeous as it is, but if I did any more I think it might be a little bit too much. So I'm just going to stamp onto here. So ink your stamp up, press it down, gorgeous stamp. That one looks really lovely. Close my ink pad up. I don't know if you're like me, I'm a bit manic about my ink pads. I do like to make sure that they're closed. Then used the oval punch. Now you'll notice this is a really old one. It's the old-fashioned whale type style. I'm going to have to upgrade to the better one. They are exactly the same. They do the same size, same shape. They cut just as beautifully. They're just a bit clunkier. So at some stage I will upgrade, but I've got so many other things I want to buy. So just punch that out, and then I took a little bit of strawberry slush card, punch that out, and then you can use some glue or a dimensional just to attach these. You just want a little bit of the strawberry slush card showing, not too much. So let's pop that about there, just enough so you get an accent. Bring the card back, and again you could either glue that, or if you want a bit more dimension, use another dimensional. And we're almost done. This feels like quite a mammoth video for my very first one. Pop that in there, and there you go, one finished card using the Hopeful Thoughts set and the Serene silhouettes and the Another Thank You set. Well, thank you very much for bearing with me and for watching my first video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully there'll be plenty more to come. Thank you.